Hey everybody, Koricon Nerd here, and this is my review of Vivegam. It's a movie directed by Ste A, and it's the third movie that Steva's directed with Ajith Kumar. And also another actor that I liked in this movie was Vivek Oberoi. I hope I pronounced that right. He plays the villain Aryan Singh, and Ajith Kumar is playing AJ Kumar, or AK. For some of those that have seen my other reviews and got used to my travel vlogs, there is no travel vlog on this one because it was in Boulder. So I didn't have to go down to South Denver to watch it. And I want to thank Galaxy, the distributor, and working with Cinemark to bring the movie to Boulder, so it was a lot closer. And I was able to get a ride down there. So it was very easy for me. It was about a half an hour there, half an hour back. I was just in a car, and that was it. So I loved that. I don't know how many movies will be in Boulder in the future, but I hope Galaxy and maybe other distributors that I can start talking to will bring more Indian films to Boulder, so it's a lot easier for me to be able to see them and people in northern Colorado that don't want to go to South Denver. So thank you, Galaxy. I really appreciate it. Now, IMDb says that the movie is about an Interpol agent who sets out to take down a high-profile gangster. And that's kind of accurate, but I can see why they worded it that way, because it would be kind of a spoiler, so if you don't want to know any spoilers, maybe skip this part, but there's a lot more to it in that there's betrayal involved. And so I'm kind of glad that IMDb and some other places didn't give away the betrayal part. However, it was pretty obvious once you started watching the movie. The story was very simple, but just fine for an action film. However, because of that storyline, the movie was too long. It could have easily cut an hour out of the movie and kept it a nice, tighter, fun action movie. But it reminded me a lot of the cheaper action films that we've had out here in the US since the 80s and 90s and going into 2000s. And even now they have action films like this. You know, stuff like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Steven Seagal, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Chuck Norris. They've all had these kind of simple storyline, just fun, entertaining action movies. And I do like those. Now, for those of you that have seen some of my other stuff, I also talk about the chess game. There's a lot of movies that have characters, the good guy and the bad guy, that they have a literal chess game, a mental chess game with each other. Like in Vikram Vita, it was the scene in the interrogation room. They had a nice mental chess game going back and forth. It's basically showing who is smarter than the other one. And I like those kind of character build-ups. In this movie, they had a literal chess game, which half the time it was cool and some of the other times not so much. Like they did show them playing chess, or they had them playing chess over long distance. But then they had moments where things were going on between the two characters, and then they had a CGI chessboard, and they would show the pieces moving around of what was going. It's like a reflection of what was going on. I didn't think that part was necessary. It was a little distracting. It kind of clarified a little bit of what was going on, but I didn't think you needed to. So I would take that part out. I think showing them playing chess that they did earlier in the movie was perfectly fine enough and set the tone for this chess game. And we could just enjoy it throughout the movie. You didn't need to have those animations. The production, locations, and cinematography looked good for the most part. I do like the location shots that they had. Snow always looks good on film, so the snow in the forest looked great. Some of the wooded areas that they fought in were great. I liked a lot of the location shots, even during the romantic parts where they had the lake with the bridge and everything. It looked really good. But they didn't utilize those areas properly, and I'll get into that a little later when I talk about the action sequences. But the cinematography was okay. The way that it looked on picture, like an individual frame, looked great. It looked clean, in focus. There was a lot of stuff going on. However, I think the editing ruined it. The editing in this movie was really bad. It was very choppy with quick cuts and multiple angles of every scene. Even things where people are just standing and giving exposition or talking to other characters, you would have the camera angle on his right side, then on his front side, then on his left side, and then an overhang, and they would cut all over the place just for an exposition scene of talking. There was no need for that. It pulled the audience out of the sequence because you're trying to refocus of what angle that you're looking at now instead of concentrating on what they're saying. But the stuff in the background looked good. I like the war room, or the area that they were in that had all the monitors, and very sci-fi kind of epic, which fits perfectly well in an action film like this because it's just an entertainer action film. So to have things that are over the top are just fine. You know, it comes with the territory, but it did look neat on film. I just wish they didn't cut it all over the place so we could actually see things that were going on. So the editing also killed the action sequences. For those of you that have heard me talk about this before, I call it the SCQ. 3 things that will kill any action sequence: shaky cam, close-ups, and quick cuts. If you do that, then you lose your audience. You only get to see a small portion of your action sequence. And most of the time that is done to edit around a bad performance or edit around an action scene to make it more dynamic because it doesn't look very good as a raw footage. But they did it even more than that in this. It felt like there were some action sequences that were planned really well and set up well, but we only got to see maybe 40% of it because they cut it all over the place. If they had just kept the camera still, they did keep the camera still for the most part, but if they had the edits be longer for some of the sequences, like in the forest when they're running through the forest, or the motorcycle chase scene, a lot of the fights, if they had just let the camera roll, it would have looked a lot better, and we would get to see what they were actually planning to do instead of it being cut all over the place. Now, editing aside, the action was okay. There were many great setups and concepts, but they weren't executed very well. A lot of the over-the-top action was just fine and fit the style of the film of an entertaining action movie, which we're used to, and it works. It's more of a fantasy, and I like that. However, some of them push the logical limits way too far to where you can't even suspend belief anymore. It's more of just rolling your eyes. Like there was a moment with him on a dam, and he jumps off the dam, he's shooting everybody, him hitting people, okay, I can suspend belief for that. But then when he hits the bottom, he had timed it to where the water jets out the bottom of the dam, and then that sweeps him away. No, it's going to kill you. It's going to kill anybody. There's no way of surviving that. The green screen for it looked bad. That entire thing just ruined the entire action sequence that preceded it. And so it was a really bad ending to an okay action sequence. Also, during that time, when they were doing the action sequence and they would have bullets flying, they had some really bad After Effects. After Effects is a program with Adobe Premiere, or part of the Adobe Premiere package, that allows you to do some cool effects stuff, and it's called After Effects. That's the title for it. But they had things like bullets would have a spark flare when it hit wood, or it just looked off center. It didn't look like it was right where the wood was, or the motorcycle or the car or whatever else. If they had used physical squibs, now a squib is a little explosive thing that sometimes you see it where they'll put it on their chest, they'll have a bunch of squibs with little blood packets, so when they shoot you it looks like blood coming out. It looks a lot better. It's a physical special effect. Sometimes if it's for like on a brick wall or drywall or a tree or wood of some kind, they'll dig a little hole in it, put a squib in there with a little bit of the stuff that it's attached to, whether it be brick or wood or drywall or whatever, and then use artwork to patch it over so that it looks good. And then when it explodes, it looks like a bullet hit it. If they had just done well-timed physical squibs, it would have looked a lot better but instead we got some pretty bad after effects, and it was very noticeable. For our characters' acting and dialogue, it was okay for the most part. For our two main characters, the villain Arian and the AK, our hero, they did pretty good. I was actually more impressed with the villain. Even though he was a bit over the top, he was enjoyable to watch. I liked him as a villain. I thought he did a good job. He was very maniacal. It was entertaining for me to watch him. I think I liked him more than I did Ajith Kumar as a character. But his character was better in the romantic scenes. I thought he did a much better job with the character building than he did with the action sequences. Now, it could just be because of the editing had chopped his action sequences up so much that it was hard to tell if he was doing a good job or not. But there were some dialogue lines where I don't normally talk about dialogue because of the translation. I miss a lot of stuff in the translation. So from my point of view, having it translated into English, there's a lot of dialogue that doesn't come off right, or it comes off different, and I don't get some of the subtle meanings that you would get if you know the language. However, there was some dialogue in this movie that was so bad, it came through on the translation. Now, there are, in a lot of action films, your main star will have some one-liners, you know, some zingers, and those are fine. I don't mind them too much, but some of the dialogue they had Ajith Kumar say were like really long. It wasn't a zinger or a one-liner. It was like one word pause, one word pause, one word pause, and finally a payoff. It's like, okay, we get it. Say the sentence. Just say the whole thing. And it really was to, what they were trying to do is like show how awesome he is. But I think it just kind of took away from that instead of adding to it. If he had said the line quicker or put a little more gravitas into it, then the dialogue would have had a better impact than just making it a really long, slow sentence. That's just my opinion, but that's how I think it. The villain, though, Arian, his dialogue was quippy, it was fast. He had some great, like, cheesy moments where he looked at near the camera and said something with a smile, and I liked those moments. Even though they were cheesy, I still loved those moments. So I liked what they did with his character. The acting for the other characters was not good at all for the most part, but a lot of them were disposable characters, so it didn't really matter. They were there to just have more people on screen or to shoot a gun, and they didn't really have to say much. For that aspect, they looked neat, but whenever they spoke or acted, I wasn't impressed. I didn't really like that part. So to wrap up, a simple storyline that would be fun for the most part, but it was drawn out too far. The editing was horrible and just messed up the whole movie, in my opinion. I did like the villain. He was very entertaining. And overall, I'm going to give this movie a grade of a C. The movie was okay. It was entertaining enough. Not something I would have seen in the theater. I would have much rather had just caught it on TV or on Netflix at some point when I was bored, but not a movie that I would go out of my way to watch. But thank you guys for watching. Comment below and let me know your thoughts on Vivegam. What did you like? What did you not like? What do you agree with me with? What do you disagree with me with? Let's keep it civil down there. If you're on VidMe, upvote this, give me a follow and share it around. And if you're on YouTube, like, share, subscribe. Tell your friends. And I will see you on the next video.